This is the second part of a two-part presentation on completing the budget analysis form. You should watch the first part first. Then this picks up where the first part leaves off. Looking at the form in front of you on the screen, click back to the Percentage Guideline tab where the insurance percentage is 4% and the debt is 5%. Click back to the blank form and put a formula in that multiplies the $1,382.07 times 4% for the insurance, which comes to $55.28. In the next box down, we put the formula in to multiply the $1,382.07 times 5% for debts, which comes to $69.10. Click back to the Percentage Guideline tab where the Entertainment Recreation percentage is 10% and the Clothing percentage is 5%. Click back to the blank form and put a formula in that multiplies the $1,382.07 times 10% for Entertainment and Recreation, which comes to $138.21. In the next box down, we put the formula in to multiply the $1,382.07 times 5% for Clothing, which comes to $69.10. Click back to the Percentage Guideline tab where the Savings percentage is 15% and the Medical Dental is 5%. Click back to the blank form and put a formula in that multiplies the $1,382.07 times 15% for Savings, which comes to $207.31. In the next box down, we put the formula in to multiply the $1,382.07 times 5% for Medical Dental, which comes to $69.10. Click back to the Percentage Guideline tab where the Miscellaneous percentage is 5%, Investments is 5%, and School Child Care is 10%. Click back to the blank form and put a formula in that multiplies the $1,382.07 times 5% for Miscellaneous, which comes to $69.10. Now before we deal with investments and school, take a look at the bottom two boxes in the column. Notice that the discretionary spending of $1,382.07 equals the net spendable income, and the difference is 0. For single adults, the investment and school categories are optional extra categories. If money is spent in either of these categories, spending in other categories must be reduced to bring the budget into balance. Since Joe Demo is spending money in the investment category, we will need to enter the percentage for that line. So we'll put the formula in to multiply the $1,382.07 times 5%, which comes to $69.10. The discretionary spending box now says $1,451.17, and the difference shows a negative $69.10. If there was school spending, the school box would also have to be completed. But since it is not, we can ignore that line. That completes the Guideline Budget column. As the Guideline Budget column was being filled in, formulas in the Difference column showed the difference between the existing budget column and the Guideline Budget column for each category. The formula is simple. It subtracts the Guideline Budget number from the existing budget number. Up to this point, what's happening in the form has been fairly mechanical. Now we come to the point where some thought will go into the process. The goal in this last column is to create a balanced budget for Joe Demo. To do so, some spending will need to be reduced, and some may need to be increased. I will now walk you through the logic of the balanced budget that I would turn in if asked to balance Joe Demo's budget. Starting at the top, I would increase the giving to about 7% of the gross income per month. This move is based upon Joe testing God, as it says in Malachi 3, and waiting for him to respond, so that I could then increase the giving to a full tithe. He just doesn't have the faith to go directly to 10%. So I will enter $140 into the new monthly budget column in the box on the tithe giving line. To the right, I will add a note that explains what I have done. When you are doing your assignment, please do not forget to add the note for each change from the existing budget, explaining the logic of the change. Next down in the column is tax. Since Joe Demo gets a refund every year, I will ask him to change his withholding allowances on his salary to bring it to a more accurate number. The guideline shows $421 rounded, so that's what I'll put in the box and put the explanation to the right. Once again, the formula on the net spendable income subtracts the $140 and the $421 from the income per month of $2,003, which comes to $1,442. In looking at housing in the estimated budget, we'll click there now. We see that most of the spending is rent. Since Joe is in a lease with his roommate, there is nothing to be done about that. However, Joe and his roommate have agreed to turn the thermostat down in the winter, turn it up in the summer, and to be more careful about turning off lights. They expect to save about $12 a month by doing so. So we click on the blank form tab, enter $485 on the housing line, and enter the explanation to the right. In the food category, Joe decides that he can split the difference between his existing spending in the guideline budget by using coupons and taking better advantage of sales. So we'll put $130 in that box and an explanation to the right. Again, looking at the estimated budget, we'll click there now. We see that most of automobile spending is car payment. Joe realizes that he's paying too much for his car and will sell it. He will buy a cheaper car that will have lower costs overall. We click back to the blank form and enter $316 in that box and add an explanation to the right. Since the existing spending for insurance is less than the guideline, we will leave that at $30 and we'll add an explanation to the right. For the debt line, we decided to increase it to $70 to get those credit cards paid off more quickly. Joe also committed to not reduce payments when the minimum payments drop. To the right of the number, an explanation is added. The estimated budget, let's click there, for entertainment and recreation shows the largest portion of the spending in eating out. Joe doesn't want to eliminate that entirely, but is willing to cut it back by $15 a month. So we click back to the blank form and enter $120 next to entertainment recreation and the explanation to the right. Clothing seems to be working, so it will stay the same at $48, again with an explanation, not really necessary but nice to have. Savings, on the other hand, are a really necessary part of any balanced budget. So Joe has agreed to start putting $50 a month aside in the savings account. We again add an explanation to the right. Next is medical, and that also seems to be working. So $48 goes in there with an explanation to the right. Miscellaneous needs to be reduced, and Joe has agreed to cut down on gifts or to make them. We enter $85 in the box with the explanation to the right. Finally, investments are at the amount that his employer matches for his 401k. On that basis, we'll leave them exactly the way they are, $60 in the box with the explanation next to it. Notice at this point that the budget is balanced. $1,442 in net spendable income and the same in discretionary spending with the difference of 0. We also have all the explanations to the right of each line. This is the proper way to do this.